NX Coatings allows us to define paints and coatings on the digital twin, resulting in not only a more realistic visual representation but also an accurate bill of paint materials for procurement and a close estimate of residual mass and thickness that could affect the performance of the painted product. A separate part acts as a placeholder for the coatings bill of materials. This may or may not participate in the assembly's part list, depending on the user's organizational standards. Powerful selection options in NX allows us to select only the exterior faces of our 3D models. Subsequently, we take advantage of standard CAD capabilities in NX like wave linking and face boundary projection to identify the coating regions by carefully masking out the non-coated zones. Here we shall identify the overlapping faces and project the boundaries of the upper faces that cover the portions of the ones tucked beneath. For this demonstration we would assume that the paint is sprayed directly from above in the negative Z direction. Hence we shall project the face boundaries accordingly. Masking is as much a critical pre-processing step in the virtual world as it is in the physical paint shop. These projected curves are now used to divide the faces beneath, and the exposed portions shall be used to define the paint regions. The region definition command supports this workflow on the fly as well. For the near side flap we shall utilize the built-in functionality to project the bounding curves and demarcate the coating region there. Once the coating regions are defined, we are ready to apply the coating layers to those. Each coating layer in NX is defined by its region, its corresponding coating material and a few other parameters like the layer's thickness and its coverage ratio. Coverage ratio is used to compute the actual volume of wet paint that would be needed to cover the faces being coated. These parameters can be set by the user, but the default values are stored as material properties in the coating materials database. A large number of coating materials from well-known suppliers like PPG and NCP is available in well-organized XML files in NX Materials database. The database also contains standard instructions and notes as well as the NX visual material associated with the paint for rendering in the studio display mode. This is an extremely rich set of information that is embedded within NX but is modifiable by the users for each coating layer they define. Users can freely add more materials or create their own XML libraries to refer from. The Coatings Navigator provides a process view of the coated layers, growing upwards as we keep adding more coats. It also keeps us updated with the amount of material required for each layer and the weight of the deposited material and such other critical information. Certain details like the material and thickness can be modified from the navigator itself, without the need to open up the coating layer dialog box. We'd use an epoxy primer here, and for the purpose of this demonstration, we would apply 2 coats of this primer, so there's a need to copy and paste this coating layer and rename the copied layer appropriately. A very common issue is the combination and compatibility of different coating materials. Customers are encouraged to create their standard coating stacks in the reuse library. As an example, we have a 5-layer stack here for aircraft exterior. We can simply drop it in the context of the current assembly so that the final painting scheme follows a standard guideline. With all the coating layers now in place, we can use layer suppression to visualize the as-coated state during the paint sequence. Finally, we would add on-screen annotation to communicate the coating requirements clearly on the model itself and, if needed, can add the coating tables and bill of materials as well. This concludes a brief overview and demonstration of NX Coatings.